Another team that's going to be hard to beat in 2024.
St
George Illawarra Dragons. Value at 126 to 1 to win the whole thing.
Buy tickets now.
They finished 16th last year. They won 5 games. 10th of the year before. Geez, 10th would be nice, wouldn't it? 2 Dragons fans here, and the non-Dragons fan on my left has got them winning the spoon.
Yes.
I've gone 15th. You've gone 16th.
Couldn't put him last.
You traitor.
I didn't put him last.
Well, yeah, I didn't put him any higher than 15th. So high expectations this year for the Dragons. Shauno, you want to run us through why you think this team is a wooden spoon team?
Well, I feel like when you look at those teams we just talked about, and we haven't talked about the Tigers yet, but the teams around them, in theory, should have got better, which is I think the exact same thing we said last year. Maybe outside the Titans, so we're hoping the Titans are going backwards. Same with Raiders, they haven't really added, so you're hoping they're going backwards, and the Dragons can avoid the spoon, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about avoiding spoon.
Yeah.
We're not even top 8 conversation.
No, that would be
let's avoid the spoon.
Yeah,
let's avoid the spoon. And I feel like those teams around them, Tigers and Bulldogs being the main 2, have improved, whereas Dragons really, they tried to sign everyone and couldn't really get any name value that they were after. Besides Luciano, who signed but is also suspended now for the first couple of games. He was really the last dice roll and big name that they've got to come across to the club. So
Dragons Junior too, love being home.
Yeah. So, but it's they had the cash, really haven't capitalised on it. Not really a strong roster, so there's not a lot you can pin your hat on that's going to go right. Besides a man named Ben Hunt.
Yeah.
He is the squad. He is the side.
And for anyone that watched the trial game against the Tigers on the weekend, he was just doing Ben Hunt shit, setting up tries, scoring it himself.
Yep.
Looks at just a class above everyone else. Caveat, it was a preseason game, but we've seen him do it, in Origin. We've seen him do it for the Dragons for a number of years.
Exactly. He did commit to the season to the Dragons.
Yeah.
But same thing that happened last year when they've lost 10 in a row, and does he start questioning him? It's like, I've only got so much longer left in my career. Do I want to stick it out here with the Dragons, or again, like move north, go closer to home, like he talked about last year? So, yeah, for now he's committed. I think he's only on a 1-year deal left. Last year
he's on the last of his contract. A bit of a shit show over the off-season as well, with the Ronald Volkman fiasco, bringing over a guy from the Warriors and his shoulder hadn't been cleared. And the physio said it felt like chocolate, which is a strange descriptor, I thought. And poor Corey Allen, who was a reasonable signing, probably would have slotted in somewhere in the back line, did his ACL. So not a great preseason for them. I'm glad they got Leilua. There's sort of some question marks around how much he's getting paid and is he worth it, although the Cowboys are paying some of his contract as well. So, they've done well there. Hame Sele's not no slouch coming over from the Rabbits. He probably gets a bench spot. But the big question is how's Kyle Flanagan going to play under his dad? He was a product. There was a time a few years ago when he was at the Chooks where I was like, he's going to be the next big thing.
Yep.
And, for whatever reason, injury was part of it. Wasn't able to play week in and week out. And again, it's much like the Luke Brooks question, like, is he a talented footballer that got stuck in a poor system?
Yeah.
The difference is that Brooks is going into a pretty reasonable system, whereas Kyle Flanagan...
Was it? Well, he was in a reasonable system at the Roosters.
Yeah, for sure. That is true. And
but they obviously, I don't want to say saw something in him and just said, no, he's not going to be good, and booted him. But that's kind of like they saw, Sam Walker and another guy come up and they went, I think we don't need him anymore. And they let him go. And he tried his best at the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs were like, he really doesn't fit with us and it's not going to work out. So, his dad essentially given him the lifeline. Luckily for him, he doesn't have to be the dude that he had to be in the Bulldogs. He can palm that off. That's Ben Hunt's role. So, which hopefully, like we're saying with Luke Brooks, that DCE is going to do, that that frees him up just to play his natural game and I guess get back to enjoying his footy versus the constant hammering he's been getting the last couple of years about his capability and about how his leadership and how he goes about it. So.
Yeah, 100%. He's got this season to trying to soak up every single second of being playing inside Ben Hunt, and if it is Hunt's last year at the Dragons, which is highly probable. Hopefully preparing him to be the guy next year. Yeah. But I think that's the biggest thing for them is how Flanagan fits into the system, and God forbid Ben Hunt get hurt. How he was
gets hurt, wants to disappear. But he's going to be gone for Origin period. So they're going to have to figure out what to do when he's not there. And there's not a lot of great talent, unfortunately, to pick on. And they've made some changes. I think, is Lomax going to play in the wing?
Yeah, so in the trials he's playing out on the wing. So it's
much for paying him as a fullback. And
it's all. There's a few things at play here.
He's on big coin, and he's
the first thing is that Flanagan seems to be saying Tyrell Sloan is going to be our man with the one on his back. Dragons fans in the comments often will stick the boot into Paul Tyrrell. He's only young and he's got to grow into his body. There's been some defensive howlers through the preseason and through last year that he'll need to work on. Having said that, when he's got the ball in his hand in the open field, he looks electric. Like, he looks like, we can actually get some points out of this guy, and they've really struggled to score points over the last few years. And no one really looks likely outside of Ben Hunt being able to create or score himself.
Exactly.
So I don't mind the continued Sloan experiment. It does seem like a little bit of a waste with Lomax going out to the wing, but this recruitment of edge-back rowers is kind of forcing it. Leilua comes in, who wasn't there obviously last year, and Tom Eisenhuth is no slouch either from the Storm. So Jack Bird was playing in the centres, and that pushed Lomax out onto the wings. So I imagine if the trials and the team list is anything to go off.
Do you want to run them through the list? Because I'm now interested. Like, where's Jack Bird going to be playing?
So I think this is the way that they'll line up. And Monks, if you've got the zero tackle one there, just to go off it as well. I've got them as Sloan, Ravalawa, Bird, Sawley, Lomax. That's often how they were going in the trial games. Flanagan 6, Ben Hunt 7. Front rowers Blake Laurie, Francis Molo, hooker Jacob Little. One edge will be definitely Jaden Sewer, and then barring the first couple of games of suspension, I think Luciano Leilua will play the other edge. Jack DeBellin locks down the 13 jersey for sure. I think Hamo Sele coming across from Rabbits will be on the bench for sure, probably with Michael Molo, Toby Couchman, and I want to talk a little bit about Vilami Fafita. He's my one to watch this season. He's a 23-year-old big middle coming over from Blacktown, and he's tipped to maybe be getting a bench spot even as early as round one, but definitely keep an eye out for him, Vilami Fafita. Depth is a real concern. We talk about it with other teams, and
if you look at
the fact that the Dragons are my own team, I really got to put that out of my mind.
You look at that.
Depth is concerning.
Yeah, you look at the outs, and they did look. It might be not the top tier talent, but it's talent for Dragons. It's talent that you'd really not be losing.
And Billy Burns is pretty handy. Josh Kerr is pretty handy. Moses Mbai, although probably on the twilight of his career, was playing a starting or as a 14 last year. Zane Musgrove, I don't know, they bring him in, he only plays a year and he goes. Bud Sullivan, who we'll get to the Tigers in a second, there's a whole swart of guys that were in their starting 17 last year that have gone. So yes, they some of that is negated with their ins. Leilua, Flanagan, Sello probably all be starting 1 to 17 when they come in. But it's going to be interesting. Raymond Fatala Moreno as well is an interesting signing. Was the club captain at the Bulldogs. Not the most talented guy in the world, but maybe bringing him over for some leadership and maybe slots into a bench position there. But look, I'm looking at it with red and white glasses. I think the Tigers are worse. The trial game, yes, albeit a trial, was essentially their strongest going at it, and that could be the spoon bowl again this year. is the Tigers and Dragons. So strap yourself in when that blockbuster rolls around.
So the big difference I see in that list is Jack Bird's in the second row.
Yeah, so they've got Bird in the second row that doesn't have that's after Leilua has So
Yeah.
I think Leilua will come in there with Jack Bird possibly playing in the centres and Lomax out on the wing. That's how they line up in trials. So that's how I can go off it. I don't know. Maybe Bird will play as an edge or
depends what sort of shape or what size he's in.
Yeah,
because he kind of fluctuates depending on what they ask him to do.
He's pretty good.
Yeah,
like he's a premiership winning player and got a fair bit of mongrel in him.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking strictly at ins and outs, it's a little concerning.
Yep.
Silver lining, Hunt is on contract until 2025. But whether he plays through to 2025.
So that's Dan Riccio there of Daily Telegraph and SEN fame. He said his belief is he's not there next year. So be interesting. That was halfway through last year that Ben Hunt's out the door next week was what was being reported.
Yeah, they went into Origin camp and he was talking to those boys and he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to be here anymore."
Yeah, so how much of that is real and how much of it is that the rugby league circus in the media?
Yeah, I think the deal to go to the Broncos to play 9 was a done deal, and then to go play for the Dolphins next season. Well, this season. Yeah, I think it was all ready to go, barring the Dragons signing off on letting him go. And the 11th hour, they said, should we really get rid of our best player with no return?
No.
So I guess some common sense prevailed on their end.
Good.
But the question will be, does he get disgruntled at all, especially if they're losing bulk games to start the season?
My concern is next year.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more worried about next year than
Need to
this
find
year.
some talent.
The last few years, it's always been Dragons will be spoon or they're there or thereabouts, and it hasn't eventuated. It went fucking close last year. I think whilst Ben Hunt's there and healthy, I don't think they're a wooden spoon team. But I also they are my team, so maybe I've got to just wake up in the morning and believe that.
Well, I've been believing, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years they'll be the spoon, so maybe it's this year.
Anything else to add there, Max?
No, not really. I think, covered pretty much everything.
Anyone there who's not in those projected teams that you like the look of? I think Tom Eisenhuth is a pretty handy player. Whenever you bring someone out of a Melbourne system, you got to be reasonably happy with them. Ben Murdoch-Masila came across from the Warriors. He's older. I'm not saying these guys are premiership winning guys, but there's a little bit of experience there at least.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's it. Sort of just building on the experience they have and sort of bringing up some of these younger players as well.
Yeah, the Cashman brothers, we were talking about brothers before. They were pretty handy last year. They're only young. They're only going to get better. But when you look at the 18 through 30 in the list, it's a little concerning. And given one of them's gone with an ACL and one's Cody Ramsey, who is still on the list, but he's struggling with his ulcerative colitis. There's a big question mark around depth.
Yep.
That'll do for the Dragons. I don't think we need 20 minutes on the wooden spooner. Let's get into a top 8 squad. Let's talk about the Chooks.
All right, they're paying 8-1 to win the whole thing. That might have come in after today's performance.
Ooh, yeah.
The Chooks finished 7th last year, 13 and 11. There was a good portion where they looked like they might miss the 8 and really got things together in the last month. They finished 6th the year before. I've gone really quite bullish on them. I've got them finishing 2nd. I really think they're a top 4 team at least. You guys have got them just fringe.
Yeah. And that for me, that kind of really depends on how Souths go. Like if Souths start to struggle again, then I'd switch those two, and the Chooks can roll straight into that list.
Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on Whiten and the Souths just taking that next step up.
Yeah, so I feel like that's it. But Roosters are kind of like the Storm. They're always going to be competitive and be good at the in that top list. They perennially annually always make the top 8, so I think they'll do so again. I think the big thing for them was probably the thing that really caused them issues last year was the health of their halves. So, they're probably one of the teams that has some of the more undersized halves. But on their day when they're firing, they're at the top of the list for a team with a spine. Tedesco looked washed last year, was probably another big thing. He looked really good today.
Looked on fire today.
So, he's whether he had niggles he had dealt with all last year or something like that, who knows? But he looked healthy and had plenty of spring in his step. So if they can keep that going, and if was Cheese their number one choice at 9, so again that's add him. That's a pretty tasty spine for the Chooks, and they're going to win a lot of football games with those guys all healthy, firing. So I think they can be anything. I think 5 is probably like a safe kind of spot, but like you've got them 2, they could definitely end up being there again. Another team that stay healthy, go on a run.
Part of me also having them 2 is a real disdain for the Broncos. I'm being completely honest there. But they did get the bickies over the Broncos today. The big name signings, Spencer Leniu coming across from the Panthers, and Dom Young, who missed today through injury. He should feature a little bit later in the year.
And they're going to potentially have some big outs next year as well, with Suwali, of course, going to rugby, and then Joseph,
he was electric today, but there's no sort of certainty around Joseph Manu's
he seems he's off contract and he's like, it's weird, like I can't get a deal, so I got to go play rugby. Like that's how you read the headline, but you obviously you can probably get a deal, but maybe it's not the sort of coin that he thinks he's worth.
Rugby will throw insane money.
Yeah, well that's the thing. So maybe do that for a couple of years, get the super up, and then come back.
So maybe it is this year or bust. We're saying with the Warriors, with AFB going and an ageing Sean Johnson, we're saying in the last vid that this is really peak window for them. Yeah. Maybe Roosters somewhat in the similar boat.
But having said that, the Roosters can find talent from elsewhere, so I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. Teddy and Keary aren't getting any younger. Like you said, Teddy looked like a step slower last year. But if today's anything to go off, Teddy look well and truly back.
Yep.
Some of the bigger names in the outs, we mentioned Corey Allen, Fletcher Baker goes to the Bronx, Drew Hutchinson over the Dogs, Matt Lodge over to Manly, Paul Momorowski's going to Super League, Jackson Paulo goes to the Seagulls, Jake Turpin to the Dogs. Is a big sort of cleaning out of a lot of the sort of tier 2 guys from their list.
And the older dudes as well, so in that kind of list. They still got a good squad. Dom didn't play today, did he?
No, he's out hurt.
Yeah, that's right. He had the concussion.
Yep. One to watch is that Su'a Wong playing on the edge. I think a lot of Supercoach and fantasy guys were keeping an eye on him. Could be anything. So one to watch there, Su'a Wong. There's a few guys in the one to watch with some Asian heritage there amongst them. So let's keep an eye on them.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, into the Tigers. Same as the Dragons, 126-1 to win the whole thing. They've been 4-20 meat pies last 2 seasons, winning just 4 games. Got them a spoon in both seasons. They come last in 2022, and you think, oh well, can't get any worse. Well, they had another team, and they come 17th. So, it did get worse for them last season. In some reasonable names, they've also got some big outs. Justin Olam comes across from the Storm. Aiden Caesar, who Canberra people know pretty well, former Raider and more recently with Leeds, comes over. Bud Sullivan, Jaden Sullivan, who I've seen a lot of as a Dragons fan, most likely going to get the 6 jumper. And they've got this big winger, Solomon Ailamolo, coming across from Rugby. He's like it's kind of like a Daniel Tupu kind of 196 centimetre winger kind of build. So wingers probably don't win your comps if your spine's no good, but he looks like he might be reasonable. Also got the Fainu brothers coming over from Manly, Latu and Samuela. So Latu in particular, young half, could
for them.
Yeah, could be a reasonable player at some stage. Been over the big out. Luke Brooks goes over to Manly. They do lose Sean Bloor to the Storm. Outside of that, Dane Laurie, a few wingers in Momola and Nofaluma, and then some fringe guys in Tommy Talau, Brennan Wakeham on the way out too.
Joe Offengow, wasn't. He did play Origin at one point. So
yeah, he's a good player. He went last seat. He'd already played games with the Eels last year, so it's not.
It was back end of the year.
That's right. It's not a true out, but from the team that was there 12 months ago had all the stuff with Nofaluma and not wanting to go to training and kind of played his cards, and Offren Gowie, like you said, was an Origin guy at one stage. So there are a few big outs. Dane Laurie as well, who if it wasn't for Jareen Buller looking so good at the back end of last year, they'd probably be a little bit more concerned about him going out.
Yep.
Sacked the entire board back in December. Yep. So again, much like the Bulldogs was, knocking the whole thing down and starting again. Looks like that's what the Tigers will be doing through the coming years. And they sort of are in a different camp to the Bulldogs, where it's back-to-back spoons now, and it's really starting to get quite dicey. And I think Benji will be probably feeling a fair bit of the pressure, at least from the media. From round one. They have a bye round one, maybe from round two.
They won their first game.
They got 2 points.
It's interesting that Richardson, who's acting at the moment for them as CEO, said a couple of months ago that they're going to be pretty quick to put in the next senior management going forward, and it still hasn't happened. So I wonder, he's well respected. I wonder if he's also maybe angling for that job long term. Which would be interesting, whether the board would allow that. So, again, more backroom stories and politics that could affect the Tigers. But like you said, hopefully Benji can get their squad going, and they obviously want to play for him. He's managed to sign some guys that want to play for him. So hopefully they can put together a good quality squad and win some games.
My concern is you come last and you bring in a new, unproven halves pairing.
Well, where's Adam Dewey going to play?
Well, he's AC. He's not going to be back. Can you go? Actually, I've got a casualty ward here. It'll be middle of the season before Dewey's even close. I would think. They've just got that doesn't help. It's knee indefinite.
When did he do it?
About halfway through last year. From memory.
So what? Mate, we talking like June?
Yeah,
it's like the gets us about to That's 8 months to there, but when was it?
His return of play is 12 to 16 months. That doesn't help.
That was from April last year.
16 months.
Yeah, so May, June kind of thing. It's the first. It's like at least the first 2 months that he's not playing.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be Sullivan and Caesar.
Yeah, I'd say so.
For the first few, and if you start 1 and 7, how much is Adam Dewey going to be able to do? He is electric at best.
Do you want to rush him back, etc.
100%.
Put him in there.
Their forward pack on paper should be good.
Yes.
Stefano played Origin. Coruscant is happy. John Bateman when he was at the Raiders was one of the hardest edges getting around. Papali's a freak. Clemmer getting long in the tooth, but still good. They've got a reasonably formidable pack, at least on paper. Justin Olam's a good get, when he's on. He's one of the hardest hitting centres there is. Getting around. Jareen Buller is young, but looked very good in some of those games, particularly towards the back end of last year. Yeah, I just got a lot of questions around a team that come last and bring in 2 new halves. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure for them.
Yeah, I'd just say for me, looking at that list compared to the Dragons, they've got more name value.
Their forward pack's better on paper.
I think there's more name value there. Whereas I look at the Dragons and I go this team's been hunt.
Who the fuck is that guy? And again, that's maybe a little bit of personal bias as well, where I watch him week in and week out. Exactly. And I'm like, how the fuck do you not know who Toby Couchman is, bruh? But yeah, it's completely reasonable criticism. When you look at them, their pack in particular,
should be giving them a good platform. So hopefully those guys, new half pairing, can get some space, get some room.
But also, none of those guys are new.
They're all.
Coruscant was there last year. Clemmer was there last year. Bateman was there last year. Papali was there last year. If you've got the best pack in the comp, doesn't mean anything if your halves are no good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they can give you the best platform, but if you can't score points out the back of it, then you're just wasting it.
And again, but Bud Sullivan's a handy little player. He's young and really good in attack.
Will look good.
Caesar's experienced, so they're going to have that sort of mix of old and young in the halves. But I just think it's a lot to ask of guys to come in, particularly given all the constant media scrutiny of Luke Brooks. And I think this
Yeah.
year will be a
Yeah.
nice fuck you year for Luke Brooks to show, well, look, I'm actually pretty good at footy.
Yeah, it was the Tigers.
Yeah. That's it.
Anyways, I've got him getting the spoon. You've got him 16?
16th, and I had
yeah.
16th.
other
I have
one.
a 16th, you have 15th.
At 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, well, hopefully more than just a step above last season. I think, yeah.
Above the Dragon.
Yeah, we'll see if that one comes back to bite me. No, I think, just reading notes here, it's going to be a big year for John Bateman. He really needs to prove himself second year in the Tigers.
Well, last year
I
was
think
all
a lot
about will he, won't he? Was he going to play and show up? And
Yeah.
he didn't. He played pretty well, but yeah, he's got to continue that.
Yeah, that's it.
It's on good coin.
Who's zero tackle got there as a rising star? Josh Felitti?
Yes, Josh Felitti.
Position? Age?
Josh Felitti is 19
Centre.
centres. Yeah.
Yeah, it could certainly be pushing for a centre's position.
they've
You
got
think
some
Olam
guys.
will definitely have one. Stafford Toa, not bad on his day, but one to keep an eye on there is Felitti.
Yeah, I agree.